Welcome back to another episode of the Science of Winning podcast. And today I'm going to be talking about a topic that you may or may not enjoy. And that is that all of us have parental issues. So many of us have daddy issues and many of us have mommy issues. And just from observation, there's no anecdotal research that I've done and we've particularly paid attention to in this area. But what I've noticed is that many grown men have issues when it comes to their dad, and many grown women have issues when it comes to their mom. Now, vice versa as well, it happens. A lot of grown men have issues with their mom, and a lot of women have issues with their dad. But I want to talk about something in particular. As we grow older, there is an inherent, I'm going to say, unsaid expectation that we are able to fill our parents' shoes, and primarily the same-sex parent, so me being a guy, that I'm able to fill the shoes of my father and beyond. This is something that I see quite often when I'm working particularly with people who have excelled in their life, and we try to figure out what is their driving factor to do the things that they want to do and have the life that they want to have. Why is this important? It's important for us as leaders of our businesses, but also leaders of our family, to understand that we do things for a particular reason, and we need to understand what these motivations are, because many times we can be super motivated towards a particular direction and realize that it's not something that motivates us, our true self, the internal self, I'm going to say tainted self. And the acronym that I use for self is someone exceptional living freely. Us as free souls, who are we? We got to ask ourselves this question. Many times we carry around with us, and I'm going to share the psychological term because I see this quite often. It impacts me as well and impacts many of the people that we work with. And that is called an introject. And an introject is basically someone else's voice that has been implanted into your mind. So you either have it consciously or unconsciously. And I'm going to be sharing a personal example here. So I'm 46 years old. I've done a ton of education academically, but there's one thing that always comes to my mind, and that is completing my PhD. I've done you can say a partial credits for a PhD, but I didn't complete it because I'm more of an entrepreneurial spirit, and I felt very confined by actually going through the PhD process. But inside my head, I have this voice from my dad saying that he always wanted me to be a doctor. Now, he wanted me to be a medical doctor. I didn't go down that path. That just wasn't for me. But I always have this thing in the back of my mind that says, hey, what if I got my PhD? I would technically have my doctorate. I would be able to put a doctor in front of my name, and I would be a doctor in some aspects. Therefore, I can make my father proud. And I do. Every year I go back and I think, should I complete my PhD? And it's there rambling around in my mind for a few weeks until I convince myself, nah, it's not the best thing for me. I'm going to be losing money and losing opportunity rather than making it. And I'm learning far more outside of doing a PhD. So I gotta rationalize it in my own brain, for the very reason that it's there. It's an interject that's there. And it's not necessarily that my dad said you have to put in or you have to complete your PhD, but just through his understanding when I was growing up that I would be a doctor, it's been implanted in my brain. So an interject is the thoughts, the beliefs, you can say even the sayings, the comments that other people have made that have been implanted in your mind as you've gone through life, primarily when you're a younger age, because you're very open, you're like a sponge. You take in all this information from the people around you, primarily your parents. And so there are many grown men that we work with that don't feel like they can fill the shoes of their dad, whether it's the success that their dad has had in business or just success that their dad has had just in general. For example, we work with a number of people who their dads were immigrants. So, and they came over with nothing and they built this empire. And now the son is taking over the business or is going to be taking over the business. And they have big shoes to fill. And in many cases, they don't feel like they can fill those shoes. In other circumstances, for example, it could be the life that the father had lived, and perhaps it was a healthy life or an unhealthy life. And that creates an interject in someone's mind. So for example, and my dad is is someone who passed away at an early age. He was 64 and a half when he passed away, so very young, and he passed away from a heart attack. Now, do I have the fear of having a heart attack and passing away early? It's there unconsciously in my head, but it doesn't impact me to that level that it impacts many other guys. There's a lot of guys out there that perhaps their father had passed away early on, and they carry that fear with them. And so with women, for example, a lot of women have something very similar with their moms. Perhaps their mom was very nurturing and was a great mother, and they feel like they have to be that great mother, but they can't live up to it. Perhaps their mom or their grandma was a really great cook and a very good nurturer, and they're not able to do that. Or perhaps this is a big one that's impacting women these days. A mom that did everything, pretty much was able to even work, go to work, come home, take care of the kids, clean, take care of her husband, do all basically like a super mom. And a lot of women these days feel like they can't keep up because there's so much thrown at them and there's a big sense of overwhelm. I want to bring this back because it really comes down to understanding what our motivations are and why we do the things that we do. Because if we are grounded in our true self, the someone exceptional living freely, those motivations are extremely powerful. They are aligned with who you are, and those, I would say, are true and pure motivations. But then there are motivations that are put in through introjects. And sometimes those don't align with our true self. And we are doing things, we are spending energy, we are sacrificing, we're doing all these kinds of things at the cost of our true self, what we truly want in life. So we have to, we got to distinguish the two. It's almost like you're going in and pulling out that introject, because I very commonly say that the introject is almost like an implant that's been put into your mind, or a virus that's been put into your mind. What do you need to do? You got to remove the implant or remove the virus, or at least you need to be aware that it's there. So let's summarize this. Understand what motivates you. Understand that if it is something that's motivated by your true self, that's okay. But also understand that if it's an introject and it's taking you down a direction where you don't know why you're doing, or you're, like I said, it might even be complicating your life in many ways, you got to reflect on that and you got to change that. Just as I'm saying this, there's something else that's popping up for me here as well, which is an introject doesn't necessarily need to be disempowering. Okay, so I use a spectrum of empowering versus disempowering versus positive or negative, because empowering means that it enables you to get towards the goals that you truly want. Disempowering is it's stopping you, slowing you down, or hindering you from getting to the goals that you want. So an introject could be, and your daddy issues or mommy issues can be either disempowering, but they can also be empowering. Perhaps there's something there that's driving you further to be better as a human being, to be better in the craft that you have, to step up and advance and increase your skill set. And as I'm talking about this, more things come to mind, but I want to share one more story. When we were with Cirque du Soleil in October, one of the things that one of the individuals said, he's a former acrobat. He said something that was very profound, simple but profound. And he talked about, he's from Europe, where many of the acrobats are from, whether it's Ukraine or Russia. And his dad was there. So acrobatics was, you can say, in the generational bloodline. They were doing it for generations. And this gentleman said that he kind of slacked off while his dad was traveling for a year. And when his dad came back, he noticed that his son was a little bit chubby, and he said, I'm going to straighten you out. So he pushed his son as much as he could. And you would think in today's era where we talk about that, we are challenged today because we say we shouldn't push our children. And he said something that was, as I mentioned, which was really impactful for me, where he said, had his dad not pushed him to that level and to that degree, he would never have been able to get into the Cirque du Soleil, and he would never have the life that he has. Part of the life that he has is he was able to perform. He was able to do the things he absolutely loved to do eventually. And he was one of the best in the world at it. And he also met his wife at the Cirque du Soleil. So through this entire process of him becoming and him being the best version of himself because his dad pushed him, he not only got to a certain level in his craft, but he also met the woman of his dreams, who he absolutely adored because she actually works there as well. And I just saw the connection between the two of them, and it was absolutely amazing. So simply wrapping it up, understand where your motivations come from. Understand whether they're on the empowering side or disempowering side, and make sure that they are aligned with your true self. And once you create that alignment, boy, there's nothing that can stop you from there.